Welcome to Life in the Fast Lane, your weekly NASCAR handicapping show. I am your host, Steve Merril, and I'm joined, as always, by my two NASCAR experts, Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com and Rocky Atkinson from SportsMemo.com. We're going to get to both. I want to remind you all we will be back with a bonus episode. We are live right now, Wednesday, June 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern, our normal time. And that's because we have a Wednesday night race once again. We're going to have a bonus episode this Friday for the Sunday race, the normal race this week. And that bonus episode is going to be at a special time, 2:15 p.m. Eastern this Friday afternoon. Once again, tune back this Friday, 2:15 p.m. Eastern for a special bonus episode of Life in the Fast Lane because we've got two Cup Series races this week, ladies and gentlemen. We have tonight, Wednesday, June 10th, Martinsville. We're live right now Wednesday afternoon at our normal time, once again, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll have a bonus episode this Friday at 2:15 Eastern for the Miami Homestead race, which is this Sunday. Also, a reminder to all viewers out there that are watching us live right now, coming up next is From the Strip with Gianni, Minty, and Kelly. That'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern, live from the Strip. You don't want to miss that. That's coming up right after this show. First, I want to bring in our expert handicappers, say hi to them. We got Andy Lang, of course, from WagerTalk TV, and I'm going to bring in Rocky Atkinson from SportsMemo.com. Rocky on fire once again. Both of these guys on fire. Andy has won 4 straight races now. Rocky 6-1 his last 7, another winning race. Rocky, I'll start with you since you are on fire. 18-4 all sports, the last 22 picks overall. Just remarkable run. Viewers of the show, it shouldn't be a surprise. You see the information we give out to you each and every week. You know these guys know their stuff. Rocky, you won again at Atlanta. What were some of your takeaways from that race on Sunday?
Yeah, solid performance, 3-1 overall for the day. Only loss was Kurt Busch over Ryan Blaney, and for those of you who followed, Kurt Busch had 3 violations before the race started, and he had to go to the back of the field. He also had to do a pass-through penalty after the green flag started. He went a lap down right away. He almost come back and won. Almost swept the board 4-0, but Kurt finished a couple spots behind Blaney. That cost me a perfect day there. I did pick Harvick to win, and he did. He did well early. His car fell off and was loose for a little bit. Then they made adjustments, brought the car back to the lead when it mattered most, which was at the end of the race. He also led the most laps at 151. Martin Truex Jr., he did well. He won both Stage 1 and Stage 2, which were the first stage wins of this season for that team. He led 65 laps, had a solid third-place finish. The guy that did well, but his finish position just don't make it look like he did, was Clint Boyer. Boyer had a great car all day. He ended up finishing 20th, one of the best cars out there. He actually led 58 laps of the race. His problem appeared to be something with his setup, as his right rear tire continued to wear down quicker than the other drivers. So his team will be looking at this and what happened here, making adjustments, and be stronger when they come back to Atlanta. The other point, the race only had 5 cautions. It was a very clean race. Very pleased with our results in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about the cautions. I just did a segment earlier before this show talking NASCAR on a local ESPN radio station, and I said it was kind of a boring race at the finish. There was non-eventful. The last 10 spring Atlanta races that had a caution around last 22 had been the last caution, and I think we had green flag pit stops there around 40 or so. I don't think we had a caution like with 80 or 70 laps to go the last 70, and Harvick just pulled away. And by the way, guys, Kevin Harvick's pit crew coming into the race had the fastest pit stops this year of any crew. And then you've got Kevin Harvick on top of that, who's been the best on intermediate speedways for several years now. That's a tough 1-2 combination when you have the most consistent driver, the best car in that type of track, and then the fastest pit crews. And that's what happened. He got out and nobody could catch him. I don't think that'll be the case at Martinsville. It's not on Wednesday. As it's a short track, there's going to be some cautions late. We might even see an overtime. We had fantastic finish at Bristol recently with the same scenario. But yeah, by the way, that's the only race at Atlanta this year, but really important to do a recap of that track, as you know, Andy, because it's a cookie cutter. It's an intermediate 1.5 mile. And, that we can translate that not only to future races at other 1.5 miles, but even this Sunday's race at Homestead is going to be somewhat like Atlanta, somewhat like Charlotte. And yeah, I thought Blaney was fast though. So even though Kurt Busch was really fast, Blaney looked good as well, Rocky. But yeah, Kurt Busch passed more cars, and boy, what he could have done had he started top 10. I think Rocky had a good pick there. Although I think Blaney was about as good as anybody other than Gibbs Racing as well. So those are all guys I'd keep an eye on here in the future. Andy, what was your takeaway? How'd you do overall at Atlanta on Sunday?
Well, my takeaway was I had Ryan Blaney over Kurt Busch. And I appreciate you guys ripping my pick, even though Blaney finished fourth. You guys act like Blaney barely won. He was ahead of him the entire race.
Two of my matchups. So I was with you on Blaney.
Jeez. I mean, Kurt was impressive, but I mean, I was going to say this. I'm going to save it a little bit for a couple of things here, but Blaney's been impressive. He's been stepping up. He's shown consistency this year. That's been a big problem of his. What I noticed about Atlanta was how different the cars got when the sun went down. I think that's going to be a really big factor going into some of these races. If you have a rain delay, or if we got midweek races where it's sunny at first. I mean, Kevin Harvick's car just came alive when that track cooled down. I thought that was a really big takeaway. You could really see what cars were doing good and what wasn't. And you mentioned Clint Boyer, and I mean, poor Clint Boyer. It's classic Clint Boyer that he has a great car and then something random happens and he ends up with a 20th place finish. He does kind of make me laugh in that sense. He's like a little teddy bear you want to hug because he had a tire go down. For us bettors, we actually want a boring race. If I lose picks, most likely it's because of something random at the end. So normally when we have long green flags at the end, I'm praying that we don't have a caution at the end because the less cautions, the less chaos, which means me and Rocky's analytics are going to come to fruition more often than not. So for me, less cautions equals better betting results.
Yeah, I agree. And, as a racing fan, I love tracks like Martinsville coming up tonight on Wednesday, these short mile, half mile short tracks. But as a handicapper and analyzing the races, these 1.5, 2 mile speedways are the cream of the crop. I mean, because it translates all the different tracks. Like I said, Atlanta will translate well to Miami this Sunday. And especially not having practice times is something I'd like to look at normally. We really have to rely on past track histories. And even those can get a little dicey because you're looking at previous seasons. Like Martinsville tonight, we don't have anything to look at but the last 2 years of Martinsville. And even Bristol from translate because it's a totally type of half mile with the banking. Yet, Atlanta translated to Darlington and Charlotte, which we've had not only this season, but since the shutdown ended. We've had it very recently. And my one takeaway before we leave Atlanta in the rearview mirror is that Gibbs Racing finally came on strong. We talked about that on the show, how we were kind of leaving them off. We normally would have been talking about Kyle Busch and Truex over anybody other than maybe Harvick. They've kind of been secondary, and I kept saying I needed to see something on the track. Well, we saw that, I thought, Sunday. Both Kyle Busch, Denny, Hamlin, and Martin Truex were probably three of the top 5 cars. I thought Kevin Harvick and Ryan Blaney were the other top 2 cars in that race. I did, Andy, by the way, like Blaney a lot. I had him in matchups over both Jimmie Johnson and Hamlin, and I squeaked out both of those because Hamlin was much stronger than I. That wasn't a great track for Hamlin historically, so that's another reason he ran really well. Eric Jones is a guy I think will be the definite play-on guy at some of these tracks coming up on that team. By the way, I'd leave him off at Martinsville. We'll talk about that in a moment. He's not great at Martinsville, but I do think this Sunday and other tracks, Eric Jones, that other Gibbs driver, could be worth looking at. And then Penske, of course, Blaney is part of that Keselowski-Logano team. So I thought Hendrick took a step back finally, even though they'd been the fastest team this season. I felt like Gibbs finally caught up and that Penske ran well also. Guys, let's get to the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award. This was such a vanilla race, as you said, Andy, that it's not good for the Stenhouse Award nominees either. That's the one downside to that, I guess. But first, I want to remind all the viewers out there, we will have a bonus episode this Friday at 2:15 Eastern, this Friday, June 12th, to talk about Miami Homestead, the Sunday race, because we have a Wednesday night race this evening at Martinsville at 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. By the way, 60 to 70% rain starts at Martinsville at 6 p.m. tonight and runs all the way through midnight. So there is a chance this race might get rain delayed or actually postponed until Thursday. It looks clear Thursday afternoon, so they will get it in by Thursday, if not tonight on Wednesday. Either way, we'll be back Friday. Bonus episode here on WagerTalk TV. And don't forget, you can get best bets from Rocky Atkinson at sportsmemo.com. Rocky 6-1 NASCAR run the past few races. Andy 4 straight winning races in NASCAR. He's hot as well. Go to WagerTalk.com for Andy Lang's best bets in NASCAR. Don't forget, both packages come with detailed analysis, and both drivers, both handicappers, have a special for the rest of the season, $199. I mean, these prices are just insane. Let's put this in perspective. We did the show after the first race. These guys started 5-1, and then we did our first show. And I mentioned it's not too late. Many of you felt like you missed out. These guys had a show, kept saying you haven't missed out. They won again this past Sunday, and we still have about 5 months of NASCAR racing remaining, and it's just $199 for everything. I mean, you do the math. You figure out what you could win. Figure out what you would have won already and what you can win over the next 5 months. SportsMemo.com for Rocky. WagerTalk.com for Andy. Rocky, I'll start with you. Give me a nominee or two for the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award, and then we'll get to Andy because I know he always has a full list. So I'll let Rocky go first here because Andy can always fill in the gaps. Go ahead, Rocky.
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot to choose from this week. So I'm going to go with William Byron. Lap 31, he hit the wall after having the tire go down. Lap 32, he had to come in. He had to do a stop-and-go penalty for his crew being over the wall too soon. He finished way back in 33rd, many laps down. It just seems like he's finding a way to become Ricky Stenhouse. You know what I mean? Like we might have to have the William Byron Award next year when we're doing the show. But the only other one that I can mention may be lap 202, Michael Mcdowell. He brought out the caution with a spin after contact with his teammate, John Hunter Nemechek. And, you know, teammates making contact and causing each other wreck is not good. So that's my 2 nominees this week.
Yeah, Rocky, if I'd had to pick one, my nominee was going to be William Byron as well. So I think we've got to vote, at least a couple votes there. We'll see if Andy can beat that one. But Byron, for me, for a couple reasons. First of all, he once again found a way to have a terrible finish with the fast team in Hendrick. We saw that back at Darlington in that one race where he and Johnson were the 2 best cars the first couple of stages, and they finished 35th and 37th. And, of course, the Charlotte Coca-Cola 600, he cost his teammate Chase Elliott a win with 3 laps to go, running 7th by basically cutting a tire and not even be able to get to pit row with nobody around him. All he had to do was get down to pit row, and Chase Elliott wins the Coca-Cola 600. So I think that's, this race itself, he probably deserves it. But then if you package in that other stuff, he's been building up some serious momentum to win this award. And isn't it ironic that Ricky Stenhouse actually had a decent day overall? And like you said, Byron is very quickly becoming the Ricky Stenhouse. I actually recommended him to some people at 30-1. We talked about it on the show. I said he's dangerous in a head-to-head matchup because he's so inconsistent, as you're mentioning, but he's been fast. And that's exactly why you can't use him in head-to-head matchups because he's so unpredictable. Andy, do you agree with Byron, and do you have anything better?
Yeah, I got a couple. Eric Jones fought, has a flat tire, goes a lap down, fights, gets back on the lead lap, comes into the pits, speeds, goes back down a lap. So way to fight hard and then just dig yourself a hole because you couldn't wait to get out of the pits. I have a couple of other non-race ones. We have to talk about Bubba Wallace passing out after the race and NASCAR not giving him an IV. Instead, they stick a microphone in his face and he passes out again. And the announcer is there and she goes, "He's not okay," as his eyes roll back into his head. I mean, he's all right. He's good. He laughed about it. So since he laughed about it, it's okay if we can laugh about it. I have going to commercial and not doing picture-in-picture, which seems like a 10-year antiquated thing. And then I have to throw out whoever designed NASCAR.com. It's the worst sports website ever. Like bootleg NASCAR websites are better than NASCAR.com. I went on the website to get the schedule, like the times for, if they were going to do practice or anything. And does it have a list? No, it has a 5-minute video. So I click on the video to watch it and it goes right to an ad. Like, this is like if YouTube.com had the worst version of YouTube.com. So I've always hated NASCAR.com. I don't know who designed it and who okayed it, but those are my nominees.
Yeah, by the way, I love pointing out how bad the website is. And it's not just NASCAR. Like NBA.com is awful as well for the same reason. ESPN.com is terrible for the same reason. You go there wanting I mean, we're information gatherers. That's what we do as handicappers. And you go to these sites, and they're just videos that you mentioned, Andy, and they start playing over each other. And I guess it's because people go there for other reasons other than we do. We go there to get information. You're exactly right. I don't use NASCAR.com at all for information. It's not even one of the 3 or 4 sites I look at when I'm handicapping NASCAR. And it's the same thing with the other major sports sites, NFL, NBA. And obviously, these are smart people marketing-wise, so I guess they have a different audience that's more important. But, yeah, from a betting perspective, those of you out there handicapping probably know that already, and you're much better off watching this show and getting information. If you're going to watch a video for information on handicapping, this is where it's at. And go to WagerTalk.com. You know, they don't have any of the stuff taking up your space other than analysis and picks. That's where you get Andy's picks. You go to SportsMemo.com and get Rocky's picks. And by the way, guys, all the viewers out there, you can go there right now and see their recap for the past several races. You can click on the pick and see the analysis. And I highly recommend doing that, not just to see how these guys handicap, but you'll learn something. It's free information. Yes, it's after the race. You're not going to cash in at Atlanta anymore like these 2 guys did and their clients did, but you can use some information that'll help you maybe at Miami and other 1.5 mile ways. So WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, great sources of information along with winning selections. By the way, guys, before we decide on the winner, one other person kind of along with William Byron that I wanted to mention was Clint Boyer, and we kind of touched on that earlier, Andy, you know, how he found a way not to run as well as he should, but how many times did we see him going down pit road during green laps and getting stuff done, and then all the speeding penalties with other drivers, as you said? So I thought those were all good mentions as well. What do you guys think? We'll give it to William Byron just because he seems to want it. I mean, I think Rocky and I probably are leaning that way. I don't think Andy disagrees with that.
No.
So
but by the end of the year, we are going to have NASCAR.com on here. I will get NASCAR.com.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Andy, when I was agreeing with you on that, is I'm going to keep that for a rainy day because when we have no nominees, that's going to be the instant winner. So we're going to keep that one in our pocket.
Byron hits the wall.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think for the new viewers out there, we have to remind them that the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award is basically for the unforced error award. It's someone that finds a way to get less from more, and Byron sums that up because he's on what's probably been the fastest team overall this year with Hendrick, and he still finds a way to finish 38th or 39th, whatever it was. I think the only car that finished worst was the one that ran 3 laps and then never came back out. We could have always nominated them, but that's kind of par for the course for those teams. Smithley and McGill or whoever, Castle, whoever those guys are. But reminder to all viewers out there, we do have a bonus episode this Friday. Homestead Miami is this Sunday, so we're going to have a bonus episode Friday, 2:15 Eastern here on this channel. Otherwise, we are live every Wednesday like we are right now at 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be live the next few Wednesdays until we have weeknight racing again. Guys, let's transition over to the Martinsville half-mile track tonight on Wednesday. Once again, chance of rain, 67% chance all evening. I actually have a feeling it looks pretty consistent, at least on the prediction that they might not get it in tonight. This is a half-mile. Bristol, the only other half-mile. However, Bristol has the banking equivalent to Daytona, the biggest track, whereas Martinsville has absolutely no banking. It's a complete flat track. So from a handicapping perspective, I'll ask both of you what you look at, how much you compare these. Of course, Richmond, my home track, is the only other under a mile. That's a 3/4. I actually think Richmond translates a little closer to Martinsville than Bristol does. Usual suspects do well here. Gibbs Racing and Penske are the 2 teams I'm really looking at this week. Rocky, what are your thoughts on Martinsville? Maybe give me a driver you really like.
I got a feeling Kyle Busch is going to get it done here tonight. I like him to win the race. If I have to give somebody out to win it, that will be him tonight. He has 2 wins, 16 top 5 finishes, 17 top 10 finishes in his 29 races here in Martinsville. His average finish is 12.1 at this track, which is good for the amount of races in his career. Over the past 2 years here in Martinsville, he has no wins, but he has 3 top 5 finishes and 3 top 10 finishes in those 4 races. His average finish past 2 years here in Martinsville is 5.8. Over the last 8 races on a flat short track, Kyle Busch has 1 win and 7 top 10 finishes and an average finish of 5.1. Kyle Busch has still not won this year. We know this is a driver that doesn't like to finish second. I feel like he's going to be focused here tonight and get the win.
Yeah, I like Gibbs Racing a lot. As I mentioned earlier in the show, we've been waiting for them to come on this season. They've been underachieving compared to Hendrick and even Penske. And Truex, Hamlin, and Kyle Busch really looked good at the 1.5 mile on Sunday. And now we come to a track in which both Truex and Kyle Busch have been as good, if not better, than anybody else on the circuit. And lo and behold, Denny Hamlin has been excellent on this track. In fact, here's how crazy Gibbs has been. Kyle Busch, as you just mentioned, might very well be the driver to beat tonight, Rocky. Yet he's only the fourth best driver the last 2 years of this track in average finish. Both Denny Hamlin and Truex, his two teammates, are first and third. So this team is strong, and those three drivers are strong. By the way, I'd stay away from Eric Jones, everybody. He has not been good at these tracks. I like him a lot coming up on other tracks, but not tonight. But yeah, Gibbs Racing's on my radar. Andy, do you agree? And who's a driver you're looking at?
Yeah, I actually had Eric Jones here. He's just downright awful. Average finish here in the last 6 races is 21.8. I don't know what it is. Just snake bitten, just doesn't like the track. I really don't know what it is about him. But yeah, I had him marked. I kind of did a little thing, like now that we've seen several races after this break, I kind of made some notes here, and I'll see if you guys agree or disagree. Things I think I could make the case for. On long green flag runs, Ryan Blaney is the best Penske car and driver right now, which is something I did not think I would say. The tire manufacturers hate William Byron. We went over that. And I think Chris Buescher is the most disappointing driver right now. 22nd this week. I thought he upgraded his car, and he's just been terrible. A big disappointment. He's complete fade material right now. I expected a lot more from that guy. I expected some top 10s and at least battling for top 12s, but not 22nds from him. So a couple things that I noticed there.
Yeah, it's interesting about Buescher. He's got 13 short track starts. He's never been top 10 in any of them. I think he's only been top 4. He's been outside the top 29 of the 13 times, so I'd be very careful with him. He's a guy that snuck into the playoffs a few years ago with that rain-shortened win or whenever it was, and then he's done well on some of the speedways over the years. But yeah, these short tracks out there, viewers who are new to NASCAR, these really, to me, tell me who can drive. I mean, a lot of these guys can get by in the big cookie-cutter mile-and-a-half tracks and just run laps, but there's a lot of intricacies to the road courses and the short tracks like these. And it's not a surprise that the guys we're talking about are the best drivers out there, like Truex, Kyle Busch. Kevin Harvick's a guy I personally am leaving off my card tonight. He's got, I think, the 5th best average finish in the last 4 races here. The other 6 guys in the top 7, 3 Gibbs, as we mentioned, and the 3 Penske drivers, Blaney, Keselowski, and Logano. So I'm all Gibbs. I'm all Penske tonight. Rocky, I have a feeling you might have a driver for one of those stables.
Yeah. The guy I like to finish second, though, is going to be, and I know y'all don't like this, but Kevin Harvick.
I knew that was coming.
I've been going with him for weeks now. He's made me a lot of money, made my clients a lot of money. You know, this is not one of his better tracks, to be honest with you. He's got 1 win here, only 5 top 5 finishes, 19 top 10 finishes, though, in his 37 races here in Martinsville. Average finish 14.9 at this track. Over the last 2 years here in Martinsville, he hasn't won. He's had 1 top 5 finish, 4 top 10 finishes, though, in 4 races here. His average finish is 7 in those 4 races. On a flat short track, and this is where it comes in for me here, Kevin Harvick has 1 win and 8 top 10 finishes in his last 8 races on a flat short track. His average finish is 5.1 in those 8 races, which is actually the exact same as Kyle Busch. And also, you have to remember, Harvick is still the hottest driver the past 10 races. 2 wins and 9 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 5.5 heading into tonight.
Yeah, hey, look, I'm never going to argue against Kevin Harvick. I mean, we've talked about that every week. He's the most consistent driver in NASCAR. I think his only non-top 10 this season was, did he finish 11th at Bristol? That might be the only time he wasn't top 10. But Bristol, as we said, was not one of his better tracks, and that was the only non-top 10. I've seen him win at Richmond over the years. He runs very well there. But I love how you bring up other short flat track, and what I'm assuming you're referencing is probably Phoenix. That's a 1-mile flat track, and Kevin Harvick has been the most dominant driver at Phoenix in recent years. So he is definitely capable of winning tonight at Martinsville. I almost never go against him in head-to-head matchups. I talk about it every week here in the show. I'm going to keep saying it in case we have new viewers out there. You know, as far as picking the winner of the race and picking head-to-head matchups, 2 totally different things. We talked about that with William Byron. He's very fast but very inconsistent. You're much better off using Byron last week at 30-1 than in a head-to-head matchup. And yes, you would have lost either way, but obviously a 30-1 risk reward is worth it occasionally. Kevin Harvick's almost the opposite. He's so consistent. He and Keselowski are the two that come to mind. They're almost always top 5, top 10, even when they have lesser cars. And now they have strong cars, strong pit crews. Kevin Harvick, the fastest pit times of any crew this season. That's dangerous at Martinsville as well. With that said, though, I would not have him on the win ticket tonight. I think Gibbs and Penske, all 6 of those guys are stronger. But, hey, I'm not going to argue with you on a second or a top 3 or top 5 finish, and I won't be playing against him in any head-to-head matchups either, even though this isn't one of his better tracks. Andy, what do you think? I want to get your thoughts on Harvick, and then maybe give me a driver you like in your top 3. Okay,
well, we give Rocky some flack for picking Harvick every week, but he does what smart handicappers do. Is if you find a guy that is going to be good, and he's going to be good consistently, you just keep riding him. And if you find a guy who's bad, you keep fading him. This is how you make money in NASCAR. It's these. You want to be consistent, but you also want to get these really long hot streaks. And Rocky's been really consistent with his Harvick love. It's made him and his clients and me a lot of money because I follow Rocky's picks as well. So Rocky, don't stop because you've been right. I would say the last 2 years. Combined at Richmond and Martinsville, Martin Truex's average finish is second, about 2.8. So he does love these shorter, kind of flatter tracks. So we mentioned the Gibbs, but we haven't mentioned him by name specifically. So I like Martin Truex, and then Brad. Of course, Brad is always going to end up near the front with these weird races. There's always going to be a weird pit stop kind of at the end, and Brad will end up near the front. He had a great season at Martinsville last year. Average finish was second. So, it's kind of the usual suspects. It's hard to pick dark horses on a track like this when you just look at all the analytics and the numbers, and they all just point to the big name guys. So.
Yeah, no question about it. This is a track in which the cream usually rises to the top. Unless we get a rain-shortened event tonight, if they do get the start in and then it's rain-shortened, I guess that's one little hitch we got to be worried about. By the way, just saw some breaking news. If this is rained out tonight on Wednesday, they will not race Thursday. It'll be postponed until a later date because they have to move all the equipment and everything for Sunday's race in Miami. So really interesting information. I did not see that on NASCAR.com, by the way, Andy. I saw it somewhere else. And, yeah, that's something I don't think many people realize. So, yeah, breaking news here on Life in the Fast Lane. We're live Wednesday afternoon, as always. And if it is not run tonight on Wednesday, it will not be run this week. It'll be postponed until a later date. I checked the weather about 30 minutes ago. 20% rain all day until 6 p.m. Eastern. The race is scheduled for 7. It goes to about 60 to 80% the rest of the night. I personally think they will not race tonight. I do not think this race will happen this week. So archive this episode as it always is on WagerTalk TV and on YouTube and watch it in a few weeks maybe because this might be a race that we do not get in. So very interesting. It will not be run on Thursdays. I thought it would. Makes sense now that I think about it. They're on a short week and they got to go to another track in Miami. So, yeah, interesting. We'll see what happens. I get a sneaking feeling this might not happen. But anyway, we will get this race in at some point. This is good just NASCAR 101 stuff to talk about. The Harvick Keselowski are just textbook examples of how you handicap. These are guys, I use the analogy of the New England Patriots of NASCAR. They're the Bill Belichick's of NASCAR. They just get the most from less. Keselowski especially. He won 2 of the previous 4 races and came out afterwards and said, I was barely a top 5 car, and he found a way to win. So always have to have them in your head-to-head matchups. Keselowski, on top of that, I think could actually win the race tonight. So he's a guy at 6-1, is a legitimate contender. And by the way, Harvick is only about 6th on the list to win outright tonight. So the odds makers have that priced accordingly because I think the 3 Gibbs guys, the 3 Penske guys are probably ahead of him. So he's a 7th place car in my ratings, but then I factor in the Harvick factor and he gets into the top 4 probably, or top 3, and that's kind of where Rocky had him. Rocky, give me one more guy you're looking at Martinsville here, and I'll get one more from Andy as well.
And then Brad Keselowski. Keselowski has 2 wins, 9 top 5 finishes, 14 top 10 finishes in his 20 races here in Martinsville. His average finish is 10.9 at this track, which is very good. Over the past 2 years, Keselowski has 1 win, 3 top 5 finishes, and 4 top 10 finishes in those 4 races. He has an average finish of 4.8 during that time. He has also led the most laps over the past 2 years here at this track, 488 laps led. So definitely looking at Brad Keselowski. Honorable mention, Denny Hamlin. I got him finishing fourth. I just want to throw that out there as a bonus for our listeners.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I played against Hamlin with Ryan Blaney. I thought Hamlin was a little weaker at Atlanta than at other tracks. And I do like Blaney a lot going forward on these speedways. I think he's underachieved all year. Blaney, by the way, has been very good at Bristol. Keep in mind, viewers, he was in second place until he spun out, and then Ty Dillon, deer in the headlights, 6-second delay, as Andy knows, ran into him and made him finish 40th. Blaney has been very good at Martinsville as well. But Hamlin's been extremely good at Martinsville. This is maybe his best track overall. So, Andy, what do you think? Give me one more guy you have as a top 3 driver, and then maybe we'll get some head-to-head matchup picks from you guys.
Ryan Blaney. I bet on him last week. He was great. Yeah, he's been good. He finished 4th and 5th here last year. When I looked at Ryan Blaney the last couple of years, it was really obvious he was really good on the short tracks and not so good on the bad tracks. So for the last couple of years, I was jumping back and forth. If we were on a short track, bet on him. If we were on a big track, bet against him. I mean, it was hilarious just going back and forth, and it worked really well. But the short tracks have always been his strong point. Now this year it looks like he's really improved on the big tracks. So I see him as a really improved driver. I get him on his strong short track here. Results don't lie. 2 top 5 finishes last year. And like I said, I think he looks like he's got the best Penske car on those long green flag laps.
I'll tell you, I'm looking at a head-to-head matchup right now. Kyle Busch is minus 185, Harvick plus 155. Did you guys ever think you'd see Kevin Harvick plus 155 in a matchup, against anybody? And I know, Rocky, you like Kyle Busch, so I'm not sure you necessarily would want to use Harvick there. But, boy, that's – even for me, when I'm not big on Harvick tonight, it's tough to turn down plus 155 on Harvick against anybody. Just crazy. We'll get to a couple of head-to-head matchups real quick. Once again, reminder, viewers out there, we will have a bonus episode this Friday, June 12th. 2:15 p.m. Eastern live here on this channel, and then archived as always on YouTube as well. Go to WagerTalk.com for Andy Lang's best bets. Go to SportsMemo.com for Rocky Atkinson's best bets in NASCAR each and every week. We get 2 races this week. Tonight, Wednesday, Martinsville. This Sunday, Miami Homestead. And we will have a bonus episode this Friday live on Friday at 2:15 Eastern to talk Miami. And then we'll be back next Wednesday, our normal time, each and every Wednesday live at 2 p.m. Eastern as well, here on this same channel. Rocky, what's a head-to-head matchup you're looking at for Martinsville?
I'm going to give out Ryan Blaney, who y'all love, even over Chase Elliott. Blaney has no wins, 3 top 5 finishes, and 4 top 10 finishes in his 8 races here in Martinsville. His average finish is 12.9 at this track, which is good for overall in a career. Ryan Blaney has no wins, 3 top 5 finishes. The past 2 years here with an average finish of 8 over those 4 races. Chase Elliott has no wins, 2 top 5 finishes, 4 top 10 finishes in his 9 races here in Martinsville. His average finish is 17.1 at this track. I think Blaney and the other Penske cars are going to be strong here and possibly get an easy win there over Chase tonight.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about Hendrick this week. They've been the fastest team on the big tracks, but we've all kind of agreed this isn't probably the best track for him. I think Penske and Gibbs, along with Harvick sprinkled in, they'll be the top drivers tonight. And Elliott's the one guy that concerns me. And by the way, Jimmie Johnson would have been a guy we automatically mentioned in years past. You look into the career stats, I think, 9 wins at Martinsville? But then digging closer, you got to go back about a decade. He won 6 out of 7 races. 6 out of 7 of the wins came like a decade ago, and 7 starts, he won 6 of them. So it's not quite the same Jimmie Johnson. I think he's the real dark horse, by the way, tonight, guys, because he's a guy that has not run well here the last few weeks. Rocky, what do you think about that? Because he hasn't gone on the last few weeks. The last couple of years, he's been 4th finishes here, but now all of a sudden he looks like he's better this season. What's your take on Johnson tonight, Rocky?
Well, I did have him as my long shot for tonight. He's a man on a mission this year, as we've said before. I strongly feel we'll get a win this year. Not sure when, but some way, somehow, I feel like he's going to get one. He's listed as not plus 1975 to win, so almost 20-1 odds tonight. The thing I don't like is having to start back in 21st tonight, but I feel like he will make his way to the front pretty quickly. Like you said, he's got 9 wins here, 19 top 5 finishes, 24 top 10 finishes in 36 career races here. Average finish is the best among all active drivers at 9.3. So definitely a long shot to win, but this is one of his better tracks, and I feel like he's going to at some point get a win, and it might be good to sprinkle a little money on Johnson to win tonight.
Yeah, and I think, I don't think there's a conspiracy out there, but it is amazing how like Stewart and Gordon got wins in their final seasons when they weren't running well, and all of a sudden Johnson's actually running better now than in recent years. So I totally agree. He gets a win at some point this year, and other than Charlotte, you figure Martinsville might be the track where they would like it to happen, the powers that be, because it would be his 10th career win here. And once again, it's a standalone national weeknight race if we get it in. I'm seeing him around 20-1 as well. He's about the 10th favorite on the board. Kurt Busch, by the way, 30-1 behind him at some spots. Whew, that's some value there. Kurt Busch has been really good. So I'm glad you mentioned. I forgot to get to our sleeper pick. That was my fault. I'm glad you threw that in there. I'll throw Kurt Busch in as my sleeper. Andy, I'll let you double up here. Give us a sleeper and then give us a head-to-head matchup as well.
Okay, well, I have 2 betting things before we get to that. So there's a prop on DraftKings. Will a driver win the first 2 stages? It's been plus 600, and I think it's happened 3 races in a row.
I saw that, yeah. Good call.
Which is so bizarre. That was funny. Because I've looked at that, and I was like, that's impossible. How could that possibly happen?
Right, they don't let you take the other side of it, correct? There's no at minus 1,000 or whatever, right? It's just plus 600.
No. Yeah. No. So that was funny. Also, I thought it was interesting what Rocky did with his bets last week. He picked a driver and went all in against him. It's a strategy. It's an all or nothing thing. And I wondered if Rocky could talk about it a little bit with what he did with his picks, because I thought it was interesting and it worked out for him.
Yeah, Rocky, obviously there's a lot of liability when you do that, because you got to probably, from a money management perspective, you might want to back it down a teeny bit because you do have a lot of exposure against one guy. But what are your thoughts on that as far as Keen? Do you look more at a play on or play against guy when you're doing these head-to-head matchups?
Well, a little bit of both, actually. And the driver he's referring to, Andy's referring to, is Alex Bowman, who I've been a play against driver. He's been a play against driver for me most of the year. I had 3 of my premium matchups were against him. I can't remember exactly who I took. I think I had Keselowski as one of my top plays, Logano, and there was one more. I can't remember. On the show,
I had Harvick, Chase Elliott.
Yep, Chase Elliott over Bowman. So I took those 3, and they went 3-0 for me. It's dangerous at times though, because if Bowman happens to have a good race, I lose all 3, and it's a chance I'm willing to take though, because I've got 3 drivers going against him. All 3 are good. All 3 are good at the track. I also cashed my free head-to-head matchup last week on the show here, and I also went against Bowman there as well, but I took Harvick minus 135 against him. So there's definitely money to be made there. You do have to be careful at times. You are going to have that losing day, and we all know it's coming at some point. That losing day, that losing week's going to happen. I've been red hot, been super lifetime in NASCAR, but that's one of my things. I play on certain guys, I play against certain guys. And if it adds up, I have a formula. So if it adds up to playing against a guy 3 times, I'm going to put it out there. So.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think from a risk-reward perspective, you're better off playing against guy in multiple matchups than using a guy in multiple matchups, because the Ryan Blaney at Bristol analogy, I liked him a lot at Bristol. He's running second. He looked like maybe the car to beat once again. He'd been the best driver at Bristol for several seasons now, laps led at least. And he goes from second to 40th in one single lap. It finished dead last. So if you had Blaney in 2 or 3 head matchups, it doesn't matter if your other guys finished 35th, 37th, 38th, because Blaney still lost all of them. In fact, I had Blaney over Bowman as the only matchup I lost at Bristol. And Bowman was basically in the low 30s because he got taken out right after that. But it just happened a little too late. So you can really get screwed over when you have one guy keyed in against a lot of guys, because if he has one bad lap, he's out. But when you're playing against a driver with 3 different drivers, as Rocky did, the only way it really hurts you is if that driver basically wins the race or finishes top 3 or top 5, because otherwise one of your guys is going to probably at least get ahead of them, if not all of them. So I think it's a lot safer to key against a driver than it is to key a driver to win. And by the way, if you like a driver a lot, instead of playing them in 3 matchups against others, I'd recommend just playing them outright at that point to win the race and get 5-1 or 10-1 odds, because you're risking a lot less to basically win the same amount that you would win by winning, 3 matchups. So yeah, it's an excellent point, Rocky. Andy, it's an excellent point as well, bringing that up, because that is something, once again, handicapping isn't just about picking winners. It's about managing your money and strategy. And I think that's something good to talk about. Andy, if you have a sleeper, give it to me quickly. Otherwise, feel free to give us a head-to-head matchup that you like at Martinsville.
You want a good long shot? I've talked about Ricky Stenhouse. This is a weird race. This is a weird track. Weird things can happen. He's got a gambling pit crew and a crew chief. $10 I checked wins you $2,600. So if you want a long shot, I keep saying he's going to win one of these weird races. I'll give you a head-to-head I found today that was really funny when I researched it. I have Austin Dillon over Matt Dibenedetto. In years past, I've been pretty critical of Austin Dillon. He's looked great this year. Big improvement. Not sure if it's the car or the driver, but he's been a guy I've been kind of keeping my eye on. And since they came from the break, his average finish is 11.8. That's 7 places ahead of Dibenedetto. Been a bit of a disappointment. Dillon is 5-1 head-to-head versus Dibenedetto since coming off the break, and an incredible 7-1 in the last 8 races at Martinsville against Dibenedetto, who has an average finish of 29.9. That's basically 30th. He just is horrible at this track. Several second to last place finishes, a bunch of out of the top 20s. 13 spots worse than Austin Dillon's average finish here. And the eye test, I know the eye test can be dangerous, but sometimes it can be helpful. Austin Dillon has just stepped up his game. He's looked really good. Dibenedetto sometimes ends up by the front, but it's like some weird pit strategy. Dillon just seems to overall be more consistent, the better driver, the better car, maybe the better team. So the other crazy thing is they got the wrong guy favored. Austin Dillon's plus 100, Dibenedetto's minus 125, minus 130. That's the complete wrong guy favored. So I love that play. Dillon over Dibenedetto.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When I was doing some research this week, Dibenedetto's been a real sleeper all season. He's been almost one of the most consistent top 20 drivers, other than like Harvick on all the other tracks. And he's a lot better this year, obviously. He was on the 95 team last year, which is now Christopher Bell's team. And Bell's been coming on strong. By the way, something I wanted to point out real quick. Xfinity Series does not race in Martinsville recently. So be very careful. You notice we haven't mentioned Tyler Reddick as a sleeper this week. He's been our sleeper almost every race so far. Be careful with Reddick. He does not run well here, and he doesn't have any Xfinity Series runs here. So Custer and Bell as well. I think Bell is the one guy of those 3 that ran well in the Truck Series. So Bell in the 95 to Benedetto's old car is what made me think about that. Could be better than Custer and especially Reddick this week. But yeah, Benedetto, I think they messed up the matchup. I think they think this is the Miami race, because he should be favored against Dillon at Miami and these other tracks, because he's been good on these super speedways in the new team. So that's the only caveat I have, is I don't know how much better that team really is, but his past record in Martinsville has been horrendous. He's been outside the top 20 in every start but 2, in 8 of his 10 starts here. And you either see him, Andy, against Dillon. Some books have him against Ryan Newman at the pick'em price, and Newman's been very good on this track as well. So keep an eye on that matchup. That's one I actually already had circled. So I like where you're going with that one. Dibenedetto's been good this year, but I don't think this is the track to play him. Viewers out there, reminder, this race might get rained out tonight on Wednesday. It will not be rescheduled this week. We just found that out. So if we don't get it in, save this episode, because they're going to race here again in a few weeks, most likely, or in a month or so. Either way, we do have Miami this Sunday. So we're having a bonus episode this Friday at 2:15 Eastern. And right after this show, right now, live on Wednesday, straight from the strip with Gianni, Kelly, and Minty. Be sure to stay on the line here for that. Straight from the strip coming up next at 3 Eastern. We'll be back next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, same time here. Bonus episode this Friday at 2:15 Eastern. Once again, Andy Lang's NASCAR picks at WagerTalk.com. WagerTalk.com for Andy's best bets, 4 straight winning races. He's going to cash again this week. And Rocky's picks at SportsMemo.com. 6-1 his last 7 head-to-head matchups. He looks to win again. These guys have just been on fire, and you get both of them. Either one of them, get them for $199 for the rest of the season. 5 months of NASCAR for $199 from either of these handicappers. Andy Lang at WagerTalk.com, Rocky Atkinson at SportsMemo.com. I'm Steve Merril. I'll be back this Friday, bonus episode at 2:15 Eastern, and then live next Wednesday, as always, at 2 p.m. Eastern here on this channel. Good luck this week, guys. We'll talk to everyone soon.